Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. We want to make sure, before we get started with anything, if you are a user of Facebook and you are sick and tired of paying $60 to $100 every year for the latest wrestling video game, stop. Don't do it. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable on Facebook right now, totally free. Create your own customizable character, join companies, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, pay-per-views, tournaments. Everything that you love about professional wrestling is built into Wrestler Unstoppable, totally free right now on Facebook. And while you're at it, shoot over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/ProWrestlingPodcast if you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast Patreon family. We would love to have you. Special thanks as always out to our Patreon, our number one pilot Patreon member, Harold from St. Louis. Thank you, Harold. Some more great questions. I love having these great conversations. Some of you guys have been sending me conversations. We go back and forth, whether it's on Twitter or in the comment feeds, the chat spots, whatever it is. Thank you guys so much for contributing to my energy, coming up with this stuff that we're going to talk about, the topics that you want to hear about. One of the things, I really got to shoot this out. I haven't heard from him lately. It turns out my buddy, Barry Harry Larry, has been away for a few weeks. He had some things going on, and he just, as some of you may not realize, is Barry Harry Larry was tuned into like every episode for quite a while, and then he kind of went away, and I got a little worried there. Maybe I said something he didn't like. Well, I'm pleased to report that Barry Harry Larry actually had something going on, but he is doing great now. He is back. He's listening. We missed you. We're glad to have you back. And he actually had a special request this week, so I want to get to his request. His request was, he is a huge wrestling fan. He sent me a message asking if I could discuss the finals of the What Culture Pro Wrestling tournament that took place this past weekend, and the AAA Triple Mania card. For those who don't know, AAA, one of the biggest promotions in the world, based out of Mexico, puts out their equivalent to like WrestleMania. It's called Triple Mania, and it was a stacked card, and that also took place this past weekend. So I'm going to make sure, Barry Harry Larry, I promise you I will get to both of those cards. I will review the finals of the tournament, and I will get to some of the details about Triple Mania. I thought both cards were awesome. If you are a fan of wrestling in general, and when I say that, there's people who are like diehard WWE only, and then you have this other segment of the fan base that, you know, they don't care what it is. They just want to see great quality wrestling. And if that's you, check them out. You could probably find all their matches on YouTube at this point. Triple Mania was fantastic. What Culture Pro Wrestling put together an insane tournament. Now, follow me on this. Their tournament was designed for different regions around the world. A United States team, a Japanese team, you know, that kind of thing. And they had tournaments within their regions, and then the regions had representatives who won those micro tournaments to go on to compete in the Wrestler World Cup, which was fantastic. And there were matches throughout the tournament that, like, you just don't get to see. Marty Scurll was in action against Zack Sabre Jr. Will Ospreay and Ricochet got to relive their rivalry. Just things going on all over that were just out of this world, and the finals were amazing, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Before I get to the news, the rumors, the results, and all that kind of thing, make sure if you have questions for me, tune into the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160. We want to get to your questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to talk about. I always love to bring your thoughts to the show. You guys are the mechanism that drives what I do. Yes, I'm a rabid wrestling fan myself. I could easily turn on every website in the world and just read the news and not do anything with it, but communicating with you guys, hearing your comments, your feedback, when you guys tell me what you're excited about, that makes this all worthwhile. So thank you to everybody who's been sending questions. I really appreciate it. And if you are new to the podcast, you have never tuned into our episodes before, that's totally cool. You know, welcome to the show. I encourage you to shoot over to our webpage at frowrestling.com, which is the homepage of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. There you'll find a list of all the topics that we'll cover in upcoming episodes. And typically, once I record an episode, they'll stay there for a little while until I play in the next episode. Each week, I try to get an episode out Tuesday, Wednesday, Wednesday and Saturday. Now that, as a teacher, now that the school year is getting ready to start, I'm going to be probably doing a Wednesday night and a Saturday night show. That'll probably be what I can fit into my crazy, insane schedule. But that is the goal. So if you go to ProWrestling.com and you see the topics there, it means that's either what's coming up on the next episode or what we just covered in the most recent if you want to go back and watch it. And then at the bottom of the screen, you can literally stream it right from our webpage. So in this episode, there is so much to talk about because I haven't put anything up in a couple days because of the craziness that is my crazy world. I want to get to a lot of things. I want to start in some more independent type things, and then we'll get into WWE. I might go back and forth just a little bit, just to mix it up. And I'm going to start with something I really thought was awesome. Ring of Honor, or I'm sorry, I apologize, not Ring of Honor. Impact Wrestling has been making all these overtures to other companies to cross-promote and share talent and really give you the feel of the old-fashioned National Wrestling Alliance, where you would have champions who could travel from brand to brand, and they could be stars in one promotion and then leave for a while, go somewhere else, come back. And it was a really cool concept, and it's been gone for a while. The territorial days, in a lot of ways, people have always said is over. I feel like the territorial days are emerging again in the independent world, which may actually be even more strong than the original territorial days. And what I mean by that is there's been a debate going on online recently about, are indie wrestlers indie guys? No, they're not. They're professional wrestlers. Back in the territorial days, the days when people think that wrestling was like at its heyday, you had these small promotions who would take up a state or two, and that was it. They didn't reach out beyond that. Now, you have corporations that operate, like AAW is a great example. AAW puts out great shows, but I'm in Philadelphia. I don't get to see AAW shows, but I could tune into YouTube and see them. And back when the territorial days were around, I couldn't do that. So I had to go into like the Inside Wrestling, the Wrestling Observer, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, those kinds of things, and find what happened elsewhere, or else I was just oblivious. You always knew what was going on in the World Wrestling Federation, and you knew what was going on in the NWA or WCW, but you didn't know what was going on in the smaller places. You had some AWA mixed in on ESPN, some World Class on ESPN, and a little bit of Global Wrestling Federation for a little while. But if you really wanted to see exposure to just as much wrestling as possible, it wasn't easy to do. Now, with the advent of YouTube and all these streaming services, you can do that. So, that being said, the reason I went down this crazy tangent, I apologize, is that in Japan, there's an amazing company that Pro Wrestling Noah that has made a deal with Impact Wrestling to share talent. And one of the talents in Impact Wrestling who has recently gone to Noah was Eddie Edwards, formerly one of the Wolves, former tag team partner of Davey Richards, went over to Pro Wrestling Noah and just won the GHC, which is their world championship. He just won it. He won the world title for Pro Wrestling Noah. That's amazing. Typically, North American competitors don't typically get over that fast in Japan. Not saying they can't be big stars. That's not anything like what I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is, like when you look at New Japan Pro Wrestling, which if you're a fan of this podcast, you know I'm a monstrous fan of, you don't see a lot of North American wrestlers wearing the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, and there's a reason for that. They really are good at protecting their homegrown stars, and in some ways that's a good thing. But when you have somebody like Kenny Omega, Cody, some of those talents who never get the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, it does kind of put a little bit of a spin as to where their motives are in booking their champion. You know, you can't convince me that Kenny Omega is not a worthy world champion. But for some reason, they have not given him the championship. And his contract is up in January. You would think that would be a way to keep him around, unless they're going to use that as leverage. Hey, listen, don't leave and go to WWE, and we'll give you an opportunity to be IWGP champion. Probably the most prestigious championship in the world. So, and I know that's a hot topic of debate, but that's a topic for another show. But with Eddie Edwards going to Noah and winning their World Heavyweight Championship, it shows you that that company understands the bigger picture. That pro wrestling is not a regionalized thing. It's a global phenomenon. And that Eddie Edwards is an incredible talent in every company he's wrestled in. And that he's a great flag bearer, standard bearer for their company. And I applaud Pro Wrestling Noah for doing that. The GHC World Heavyweight Championship is nothing to sneeze at. Some amazing talents have gone through that company. Minoru Suzuki and people like that have gone through that company and really put it on the map as being a fantastic promotion. So, kudos to Eddie Edwards for accomplishing something that A lot of North American stars don't. I do want to get to, there's been a debate this week over the booking of Jinder Mahal and Shinsuke Nakamura at SummerSlam. Some people are thrilled that Mahal retained the title because it in some way adds some legitimacy to his reign. And I've been very critical of this. If anybody followed my tweets on Twitter during the SummerSlam pay-per-view, I had issues with the fact that you're booking Jinder Mahal to have another schmaz win. He has yet to have a solid performance as world champion, so it makes his reign look very weak. For me, I would have liked to have seen him still retain the championship. I have no problem with Nakamura not winning the title. I have a problem with him not winning clean. Now, if you're not ready to have Nakamura lose clean to Jinder Mahal, then maybe you shouldn't have booked him against Jinder Mahal. Okay, so for me, I've been seeing comments online and everything. People, Mahal should have lost. Nakamura's more over. Mahal infuriates the fan base. He does. But if you remember, back in the territorial days and in the NWA days, Ric Flair would get heat everywhere. And then you would watch your stars go against him, and you would hope that they were going to find a way to take the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, and from one way or another, he would always walk out of every show as champion, and it would drive people crazy, but then you'd pay more and more money to go see him, hoping he would lose. Roddy Piper was great at this. He would talk about, the big debate over WrestleMania 1 was, what really drew WrestleMania? Was it Hulk Hogan, or was it Roddy Piper, or was it the fans choosing to see Hulk Hogan beat the crap out of Roddy Piper? And I tend to believe that that's more what it was. Roddy Piper never lost. Everybody wanted to see him lose. They hated hearing him talk, and he was so brash and arrogant. And here's Hulk Hogan, who's going to shut his mouth up. And I feel like that's the kind of character they're building in Jinder Mahal, is the Roddy Piper, like, the fans hate me. It's rabid viciousness towards the champion. And at some point, you'll build somebody up to defeat the champion and take that title, and it will be a crowning achievement because the fans have been waiting for it for so long. Now, my understanding is there's already a plan in place to do that. We'll get to that a little later in the episode. I want to get to that What Culture Pro Wrestling World Cup because the finals were amazing. Absolutely amazing. Kushida defeated Joseph Connors in the semifinal number 1. Will Ospreay got to go one-on-one with Ricochet in the semifinal number 2. The finals came down to Kushida versus Will Ospreay, which, if you are a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling, you've seen this match before. It is insane. Kushida, in my opinion, one of the greatest pound-for-pound wrestlers in the world today. I don't think he gets near the reputation he deserves. You say Will Ospreay, Ricochet, Zack Sabre Jr., people know who they are. I'm not saying people don't know who Kushida is, but he is every bit as important a wrestler as anybody else in any independent or other company outside of WWE. Kushida coming to WWE and going to 205 Live would revolutionize that brand. That's how important he is. The finals, Kushida defeats Will Ospreay to win the What Culture Pro Wrestling World Cup 2017, a phenomenal tournament. If you get the opportunity, all of their matches are available on YouTube. They have their own channel. It's an amazing tournament, very unique concept. Check that out. I want to get to AAA Triple Mania 25, the results. I'm not going to go match to match because I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but a lot of my fans that are listening don't know a lot of the stars in AAA, but I will talk about the things that I think were very important that you might be interested in going and checking out. First off, major controversy coming out of the show is there was a multi-women match for the Reina de Reinas. It's essentially their women's championship where Sexy Star retains her women's championship. It's not that she retained her title that has been making the news. What is making the news is that during the match, the finish of the match sees her put Rosemary, who is a GFW contracted female talent, into an arm bar, and it looks like she taps out. And then after she taps out, Sexy Star totally goes into shoot mode and legitimately pulled her shoulder out of the socket, going into business for herself. And in the pro wrestling business where you are trusting somebody else with your safety in the ring all the time, this sends a horrible message to the wrestling community. Various independent promotions have come out and said they will never book Sexy Star to wrestle for their companies ever in the future because of this. You need to protect the other people in the locker room, and she clearly didn't with this. Even Conan, who is the man for AAA, Crash Wrestling, Lucha Underground, he himself, he won't even comment because he doesn't know what to say. It was horrible decision on her part. You don't go into business for yourself, you know? So it'll be interesting to see how she is booked going forward in places like Lucha Underground and in AAA, where she's still the champion, since so many people are now saying, I don't want to work with her. She was completely unprofessional. Some people are even saying that there's a chance that she may be blackballed from the industry altogether. We'll have to see if that happens. The Torneo Triple Mania 25 is a trios tournament. So it's basically 6-man tag team opportunity, where it's kind of like a reverse Royal Rumble kind of thing. And, you know, you'd have to see it to fully grasp how cool this match was. But the reason I'm bringing it up is two things. First off, for those old school WCW fans, Team La Parka won the match, which is very cool to see La Parka still getting out there and throwing down, coming out to the Michael Jackson Thriller music and dancing with a chair and all that kind of fun stuff. But the other thing that I loved is Global Force Wrestling had a team that participated, which was comprised of Bobby Lashley, Moose, and Jeff Jarrett getting in the ring. One of those few times you see Jarrett in the ring. And Jarrett came out throwing tacos at the fans and all this. Just incredible heat for the GFW team. And it was awesome to see La Parka's team pick up the win. It's kind of surprising that Bobby Lashley, his team didn't get the win, considering how big a star he is. 2 sports, being in GFW and in Bellator. But congratulations to La Parka. One of the big things coming out of the show, Johnny Mundo, also known as Johnny Impact, Johnny Nitro, John Morrison, you name it, he's got a different name for every company he wrestles for. He is currently the AAA Mega Champion, the AAA Latin American Champion, and the AAA World Cruiserweight Champion. He had to put all 3 championships on the line in one crazy match, which he won and retains all 3 championships. The storyline here is there has been an issue going on between Johnny Mundo's real-life girlfriend, Taya Valkyrie, and Sexy Star, where they did not tell Valkyrie they were going to take the women's championship offer and put it on Star, and it led to some conversation and insults and jabs online between Mundo and Vampiro, Vampiro being the head of talent relations for AAA, and at the end of this match, Mundo made Vampiro come to the ring and strap on all 3 championship belts for him because he won the match. But then, at the last minute, because he got sick and tired of a Vampiro who is not an active wrestler anymore, chokeslammed the snot out of Johnny Mundo, which was cool to see that. I actually hope that Vampiro has enough to get in the ring one more time and wrestle Johnny Mundo, just because it would be a great direction to take this sort of pseudo feud, and everybody in Mexico loves to see Vampiro get in the ring. Doesn't look anything like he did back in the 90s, late 90s when he was with WCW, but he is a legitimate tough guy, and he really in Mexico is a legend and somebody who it would be cool to see in the ring with the AAA Mega Champion. The last match of the night, and for people who don't understand this, when you watch Lucha Libre Wrestling, it is very different from the United States wrestling. There's a lot of respect that you don't always see in WWE or in other promotions. And what I mean by that is Psycho Clown and Dr. Wagner Jr. are both masked luchadors. And in Mexico, the mask is like holier than holy. It is a very big deal. And when a wrestler loses a mask, it is really an evolution of their character. It's really defines who they are. The masks mean something in Mexico. And the main event of Triple Mania was Dr. Wagner versus Psycho Clown. And Dr. Wagner has been wrestling for an extraordinarily long time. He is an absolute legend in the world of Lucha Libre. And he loses the match and is forced to unmask at Triple Mania. So, congratulations to Psycho Clown winning the match. But more than that, for people who are diehard wrestling fans, what an amazing career Dr. Wagner Jr. has had, and what a huge showing of respect from the fans when he takes off his mask. The arena just lit up with cheers because it's such a emotional and important thing in Lucha Libre Wrestling. So, congratulations to Dr. Wagner for doing something that means so much. And congratulations to the fans for giving it the respect that moment deserved. Moving on to Ring of Honor. So Death Before Dishonor is on its way, the next Ring of Honor big show, and Cody Rhodes has a challenger for the Ring of Honor World Championship, and it is someone who I never thought we would see in a Ring of Honor ring. I don't know why. I guess I should have expected it, considering the partnership between the two companies, but Cody Rhodes will defend the Ring of Honor Championship against Minoru Suzuki, coming in from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Minoru Suzuki is a legitimate tough guy. He's one of the founding members of Pancrase, the mixed martial arts promotion, one of the founding promotions. He's a legitimate, tough son of a gun. And he's primarily wrestled, New Japan Pro Wrestling, All Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah that we spoke of earlier. He has been a stalwart of Japanese wrestling, and now he's coming to the United States for the Death Before Dishonor show, and I can't wait to see he and Cody Rhodes lock up. Should be an excellent match. I would expect Suzuki is coming down to the end of his career, but he still puts on these just amazing matches. So that is one to absolutely keep your eyes on. It should be a fantastic match. Plans for the NXT Women's Championship are up and for discussion because we have this situation where Asuka's injured for 8 weeks. They've had her relinquish the championship. She's going to be going to Raw or SmackDown when she gets healthy. But what do you do with the title? You've got this Mae Young Classic going on where the finals will be taking place in September. I believe it's September 11th or 12th. I forget. But the conversation now is, do you have the winner of the Mae Young Classic become the new NXT Women's Champion? Do you have the winner of the tournament go against someone like Ember Moon, who is the last talent to challenge for the championship? There's a lot of possibilities here. I, for one, am not in favor of giving it to the Mae Young Classic winner, only because I feel like that championship should have a trophy of its own, and it should be isolated from the NXT Women's Championship. However, if you want to book the winner of the tournament against somebody from NXT who's been in the roster for a while, who's earned the right to be NXT Women's Champion, I'm perfectly fine with that. I would not be surprised to see somebody like Shayna Baszler go there and take on Ember Moon and see a new Women's Champion crowned that way. But it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Speaking of Cody Rhodes a little earlier, he has new business ventures. For those who remember, when he was still playing the Stardust character in WWE, he had a little soiree on the TV show Arrow, and Stephen Amell and he have actually formed a great friendship because of their working together, the SummerSlam match they had, being on the television show, and now they're going into business together. They're creating a wine business. Cody Rhodes will be producing 2 wines, one called Dream, and the other one called Nightmare. I have a funny feeling y'all know where those names came from, but it's very cool to see that friendship out of that SummerSlam opportunity has turned into so much more. So congratulations to Cody Rhodes on his new business venture with Stephen Amell. New talent signing. WWE and NXT's brand has now signed a new talent that, for me personally, for my family, my children, love to watch the television show American Ninja Warrior. And Casey Catanzaro, who is 5 feet tall and 100 pounds, has now signed with WWE to begin training to be a professional wrestler. My daughter is really excited and is hoping that she makes it into a ring sooner than later because she's a diehard fan of hers. We watch every episode of Ninja Warrior. So it'll be very cool to see where her career goes. Hopefully her size won't inhibit her ability too much. Want to touch on Mike Kanellis. People have been complaining about how WWE halted their push and they've buried him and all these things. And, this week on SmackDown, which we'll get to later, really didn't help him in any way. But it comes out in the news only a couple days ago that one of the things that Mike Kanellis has been dealing with is some personal demons. His wife, Maria, put online that he had checked into a rehab program, that he had been somewhat addicted to prescription painkillers, and that was a factor in the way he's performed and things of that nature. So you have to wonder, is it that they halted his push completely, or are they helping him get clean? Because historically, since there have been so many, the new WWE, I shouldn't say the new at this point, but the WWE wellness policy went into place. WWE has offered unlimited resources, really, to anybody who's a former talent who needs rehabilitation. And just because he's a new talent doesn't mean he doesn't fall under that umbrella. So it's very cool that he's going in and got help. Hopefully he stays on the right path. But we did get to see him come back to TV this week. When we get into SmackDown a little later, he does get a match on SmackDown. So it's good to keep his face fresh on television. And to me, that's a signal that maybe they'll want to do more with him in the future once he gets everything under control. Going to move on to John Cena's future booking plans and Raw results. First off, going forward with Raw, people have been asking why they would take such an important talent like John Cena from SmackDown and put him on Raw that's already got a stacked lineup. And here's why. Apparently, the decision was made because Brock Lesnar is off television so frequently, and you're heading into a season that you really need to drum up business. And they found out that John Cena is going to be leaving again to go film Bumblebee, the movie, that they wanted to capitalize on the John Cena-Roman Reigns feud while Brock Lesnar is off television. So the John Cena-Roman Reigns matches that they're planning for the pay-per-view are all coming together as a filler to bring in ratings while Brock is away. And then when Brock comes back and John Cena goes away to film Bumblebee, he'll return from the Bumblebee filming and then go back to SmackDown, where he is right now planning to win the championship from Jinder Mahal. So I said earlier there has to be some long-term booking plans for that title and Jinder Mahal's legitimacy as a champion. They only have until John Cena gets back, because at that point it sounds like McMahon wants to put the championship on John Cena, breaking Ric Flair's quote-unquote record of 16 championship wins. So that is apparently the long-term booking. So this past week on Raw, I'm going to go mostly in order, one thing out of order, and the one thing out of order is the John Cena Roman Reigns situation. Love the promo. People thought that it was totally off script and that they improvised on the spot. That is not the case. Everything was written ahead of time. Even if you didn't notice, at one point Roman Reigns loses his train of thought and he can't get back on for a few moments. Suddenly it clicks for him and he's like angry and fired up and his whole demeanor changed. Otherwise, the entire thing was scripted. And what I love about it is it means that WWE writers are starting to get more attuned to what fans actually think, because the lines they were using legitimately were how people feel. So if there was a lot of reality, or it felt real to the fans as they watched it, the whole "you're the carbon copy," this and that, and it was just fantastic back and forth banter. Oh, you part-time this and that. I loved it. I thought it was probably the best promo of the year, and that's saying something, because The Miz has had some phenomenal ones throughout the year, and so have several other people. This was the interview moment of the year at the contract signing for their match coming up at the next pay-per-view. There was an Intercontinental Battle Royal to determine the number one contender to the Intercontinental Championship. It looked like from the start, and we've been expecting it for weeks, that Jason Jordan was going to win this thing and then challenge The Miz. Well, that did not happen. Now, first off, I gotta admit this. I think Jason Jordan's new ring getup is awesome. I think that makes him look like a real flashy star now instead of just some amateur wrestler like that. But moving on, the surprise of the night was Jeff Hardy comes out as the winner and the number one contender to the Intercontinental Championship. He will challenge The Miz next week on Raw, and I actually expect him to win, because they have to start this Hardy Boys breakup, and I don't want to see him break them up in a physically violent way. I want to see him break them up in an amicable way, so you can bring them back together whenever you want to, but you can push Jeff Hardy as the single star that Vince wants to push, and Matt Hardy can get on with this pseudo-broken or awoken character, whatever you want to call it, which, by the way, Jim Cornette came out this week on behalf of Global Force Wrestling and said they were not going to be doing any more legal battles over intellectual property, which I think is a good idea. I'm hoping somebody listened to him when he made the suggestion to stop those fights. But Enzo came out, talked about his pending debut on 205 Live. He wrestled Noam Dar. Match was okay. I think Enzo's an incredibly horrible in-ring talent. Just to follow up, because I'm not going to do a segment on 205 Live, he did go to 205 Live, where every wrestler on the show that interacted with him kind of made it out that he was a putz. And he steals a win for his team in a 6-man tag team match at the end of 205 Live. But at the end of the day, it almost seems like WWE's booking him to look like a fool ahead of his obvious match that's coming up against Neville. Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman came out throwing down some barbs at Braun Strowman. I love that when Heyman does the honest thing, talking about how Braun Strowman is the biggest legitimate threat to Brock Lesnar and all that. That's amicable. Brock Lesnar throwing down some heavy words. I'm not going to repeat them because I'm a PG show, but I thought it was a good, solid segment. It builds a little bit of heat for their match, and I like that. I think Braun is really over as the face, even though Brock is supposed to be the face, and I don't think it matters. I think the fans want to see this match so bad. They don't care who is the face and the heel. They just want to see the match. Sheamus and Cesaro continuing their situation with the Shield. I think this is a bad idea, because Cesaro picks up one win, Ambrose picks up another. It keeps this tag team feud going, which I suppose you need to do in the short term, but at some point they need to. I hate to say this, because I was just talking about how putting the Shield back together has helped them in that you have two world champion level competitors you don't have to book into the world title picture because they're tied up in the tag team division. That's kind of where I'm at with Sheamus and Cesaro. I think both of them would easily be world championship contenders if you wanted them to be, but they've been together for a year now, and it's starting to feel stale. So unless they're going to put those belts right back on them and then do something else with the Shield, I don't know what they're doing. It looked like for a while there they may put the whole Shield back together and have them go against the Miztourage, but now that looks like that's falling apart. So I'm not sure what the motive is here in the tag team division. Emma and Mickie James had a issue in the back. Mickie James, tired of hearing Emma talk about how she started the women's revolution. Obviously nonsense. They had a match which Emma walked away the victor of. I feel like that was just filling time. It was literally like a 2-minute match and they were over. I don't understand taking up precious television time for a completely meaningless feud. Elias Sampson came out to what I thought was an interesting segment because they were in Memphis and Jerry Lawler came out and introduced Pelvis Wesley, which is a character from the Southpaw Regional Wrestling show that they have on the network. It is portrayed by Heath Slater. Funny moment, he gets beat up by Elias Sampson. Sampson looks strong. He looks really good in the ring. I like what they're doing with him. So it'll be interesting to see who they put him against next in a decent high-profile feud. But in the meantime, it was nice to see Pelvis Wesley get on television. I wish they would find something more substantial for Heath Slater. He was the man who made 3MB the minor success that it was, and he's the only member of 3MB who is not a legitimate title contender at the moment, or champion at the moment. It's kind of messed up if you ask me. He's the only one who stuck around too, which also is kind of an insult to the fact that he stuck in there when the other two were cut and let go. And then we get down to the main event of Raw. Kudos to the women for being the main event of the show. Sasha Banks versus Alexa Bliss, women's championship on the line. And I feel like I'm having a flashback of a year ago. Alexa Bliss wins the women's championship, takes the title from Sasha Banks only a few days basically after winning it. And my issue is Sasha Banks' championship reigns are all nonsense if you're just going to keep taking the title off of her. It's ridiculous. Let the girl have a championship run, for God's sake. She's one of the best talents you've got. Clearly can work with anybody, whether it's Nia Jax, Bayley, Alexa Bliss, or anybody else for that matter, Charlotte or whoever. So I don't know why it's like they have this affinity with not letting her have the championship. The cool part, though, is at the end, Nia Jax coming out and celebrating with Alexa Bliss, laying out Sasha Banks, and then she's telling her to celebrate, go up onto the ring turnbuckle. She climbs up, she picks her up on her shoulder, and then almost reminiscent of when Randy Orton won the World Heavyweight Championship from Chris Benoit back in SummerSlam years ago, and he was a member of Evolution. Batista had him up on his shoulders and then dropped him on his head. That's what Alexa Bliss does here. She's carrying around the new women's champion and drops her on her head, setting up what is obvious the next feud for the championship as she stood over her holding up the women's championship. Going to move over to SmackDown, go down the results there. Before I do, don't forget, if you have questions, comments, or anything of the nature, shoot them into the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160. Let us know what you want to talk about. If you have anything to interject into the episode, we always love to hear it. When it comes to SmackDown, I actually thought this week's show was fantastic. First off, Jinder Mahal, Nakamura at the beginning of the show, Randy Orton involved, and Rusev, I thought was a good way to start the show. It didn't take forever. On Raw, it takes a good 30 minutes to get to your first in-ring action. This took 11. So it was a little shorter. 11 still too many, just for the record, but it was a lot shorter than what others have been. So decent way to start the show. Sets up the tag team match for later in the episode. Mahal and Rusev will take on Nakamura and Orton. We had the debut of Shelton Benjamin and Chad Gable as a tag team taking on the Ascension. Kind of surprised me. You didn't see any of that teasing of dissension already between Benjamin and Gable, which they kind of flirted with last week, which is probably a good thing. Benjamin in the face looks a little older, but in the ring he looks great. He clearly is at home in WWE, so it's great to see him back in the ring. They pick up the easy win. AJ Styles has an issue with Baron Corbin now. Corbin wants a United States Championship match. AJ does the United States Open Challenge, and it brings out Ty Dillinger, who hasn't been on TV in forever, since I think the tag team match with Sami Zayn like 4 weeks ago. But he comes out, essentially it's a squash match, which is terrible for Ty Dillinger, who was coming into the main roster with so much momentum, and they've done nothing with him. Nothing of substance at all. And it's almost like, why'd you bring him up to the main roster if you weren't actually going to use the guy? And they're just burying him. But he comes out, and I hate that. That's the issue. I would have loved to have seen a good 10, 12-minute match between AJ Styles and Ty Dillinger. They could probably both put on a great match for us, which would have been, worthy of a SmackDown episode. Instead, we get like a 2-minute match with a calf crusher for the finish. And, AJ and Corbin are clearly headed for their feud over the United States Championship, which I also don't like, considering Corbin was just supposed to be a championship contender to the world title. And now, not only does he have no world title opportunity, he's going to be going for a secondary championship against a guy who should be going for a world title. It's very confusing. Rusev and Jinder Mahal are shown in the back. I find this segment interesting because the last time they were together, they were a tag team, and Rusev was the one who attacked Mahal and ended the tag team. Now they're back together for this match later on in the show, and, Jinder Mahal is talking like they're friends, which is weird since he's the one who got dumped out of the tag team before, and Rusev is the one who almost came off as a babyface. I'm not your friend, and when this match is over, I'm coming for that championship. And I'm going to be honest here. I got chills watching. I thought, you know what? That would be awesome. Have them finish up these stupid matches at whatever show they're going to do these matches, and then go ahead and do that. Put Rusev against Mahal and have him win the championship. Don't wait for John Cena at the Royal Rumble or wherever it is that you plan on having him. Have Rusev take that championship. He deserves it after all this time. I know he's got backstage heat for things he says and announcing his engagement and wedding and all those things outside of kayfabe and all that. I get it. But you know what? He's a human being. If he was on the independent scene, none of this would be an issue at all. And he'd be a major player, making as much or more money. So WWE needs to evaluate what they do when they're pushing people. You've got a guy who was the Bulgarian Brute and unstoppable force only 2 years ago, and now you've got him doing nothing important. Give him a shot. He's done his time. Moving on, I said earlier, Mike Kanellis, he's in the ring for the first time in a while, going against glorious Bobby Roode, who I still can't figure out if he's supposed to be a good guy or a bad guy. He smiles too much. I'm a huge fan of Bobby Roode, but he smiles too much. It's too artificial. And I didn't like the Ric Flair strutting to the ring. I really didn't. I loved all the glorious poses, though. I thought that was funny. He wins what is essentially a squash match, too. Kanellis is capable of so much more. Even if you don't like the guy, you don't want to book him to be a champion or anything of that nature, you could at least give him some quality matches with some of your better talent. He and Bobby Roode could have tore the place down. He's a phenomenal in-ring performer. And within a calendar year, Mike Kanellis has now worked for Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, and WWE. That's something to be spoken for. Moving on, Shane, Kevin Owens, arguing about last week, Shane McMahon taking the referee job away from Baron Corbin and counting the pin against Kevin Owens against AJ Styles in their U.S. Championship final match. You knew there was going to be some drama. Shane McMahon kicks him out of the ring. Owens sits on commentary. Sami Zayn comes out to face Aiden English, and Owens ends up ripping the referee shirt off the referee, putting it on himself, hitting a pop-up powerbomb on Sami Zayn, and Aiden English gets the win, except that Shane McMahon reverses the match and strikes it from the record books, which I don't know why, because record books don't really matter in professional wrestling, but it was interesting. I like this segment. It felt like, for those who were paying attention like 2 weeks ago when they had the whole thing about Kevin Owens coming out and saving Sami Zayn when they were in Canada, it almost had a feel like you'd love to see these two just put everything aside and get back together, It really felt like that for a split second, then he hit the pop-up powerbomb. So it kind of messed up. I would love to see Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens never be in the ring together again until they reunite. And if that never happened, there you go. There's my booking. I'm going to reunite Zayn and Owens and have them go against the Shield. I'm cool with that. Battle of the reunions. All right, I'm going to move on before I start getting all fanboyed out about the Shield and Owens and Zayn. Moving on to Dolph Ziggler, I found his interview very interesting. He pretty much went down a laundry list of every gimmick that has ever gotten over with the fans and which ones he should or shouldn't do. And he's like, you guys want all glitz and no substance and all that, and that's what you'll get next week. I don't know what they're going to do with his character, but it's obviously going to be something over the top, and he's going to be, in a lot of ways, repackaged. And I'm curious to see how he pulls it off. But the problem is I couldn't disagree with anything he said. He has been one of the best in-ring performers for the better part of 10 years and gotten almost no respect the whole time he's been there. So hopefully they find something of substance to do with him. The Usos face the New Day, another match. Coming out of the show, it turns out that Xavier Woods has an injury. He'll be gone for a little while. It'll be interesting to see if they let them continue to compete as a tag team without him, since when Kofi got hurt, they wouldn't. It seems like it'd be kind of like a... kind of like an oxymoron to keep them out there wrestling as a tag team if Xavier Woods goes down, but they didn't do it when Kofi went down. Unless they choose to do that just to break the team up, which I don't think they're going to do, considering it was only announced earlier this week of what their long-term plan is for the New Day, for them to be the greatest tag team in the history of wrestling, or at least in WWE. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. Carmella, James Ellsworth have a segment in the back. They're having an argument over James Ellsworth leaking her plans last week. Natalya interrupts them. It's announced that she will face Carmella next week. I think that's stupid. If she's got the briefcase, don't have her wrestle her at all until she cashes in. Because once she cashes in, they're going to have tons of rematches. So This is a situation where WWE is putting us in a vacuum where we're going to see the same match over and over and over and over and over again. And before the end of the segment, Naomi comes in and says, well, you got her next week, but you got me 2 weeks from now for my SummerSlam Championship rematch, which I felt like they never gave Naomi enough as women's champion. I would not be surprised to see her reclaim the championship, just like Raw had Alexa Bliss do the same. So we'll have to see. I'm curious to see how they reintegrate Charlotte back into the championship picture once everything is taken care of with her father. Well wishes to Ric Flair, who apparently is doing much better and is getting ready to start rehab very soon. Congratulations to the Nature Boy. Lana and Tamina. I find this interesting. Lana is kind of taking on her same managerial role that she had with Rusev, but now with Tamina. And she did a Tamina crush, and it went over really well. Tamina looked really tough. I've said for a long time Tamina deserves a women's championship run. And this pace and the way they're booking her, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility now. I think that's a very, very realistic goal for them to set for her. I think it would get over well. Now, of course, we have the Fashion Files, probably the best part of the cinematic television they've had for a very long time. These guys, I don't know where they're going with this. Some people have theorized that it's going to be Harper and Rowan, who've been off TV for a while, but they've been at house shows, so they're clearly not hurt. They're just not performing on television. So maybe that's who's been messing with the Breezango all this time is Harper and Rowan. They've reunited. I would love that because they're two incredible talents who are doing nothing. And then, of course, we get to the main event. Jinder Mahal teaming up with Rusev, take on Nakamura and Randy Orton. Very good match. Back and forth action the whole time. You see Randy Orton and Nakamura pick up the win, which was kind of to be expected. It was announced that next week, another one of those, like, you shouldn't be giving this away for free on television. It should be a pay-per-view match. Randy Orton, for the first time ever, will take on Shinsuke Nakamura. The winner will get a shot at the WWE World Championship. And to end the show, as they're celebrating their win in the ring, Randy Orton hits an RKO on Nakamura, clearly positioning himself as the heel in next week's match. Not as a character change, but just in that match, which I thought was solid. I thought it was a good way to book it. I think Rusev will cost him the match, and that'll lead to Rusev getting a win at the next pay-per-view, and Mahal will defeat Nakamura again. If that does not happen, I will be thoroughly shocked, but that's what I'm seeing right now. That's all the time we have for this episode. Don't forget to check back with us next time for all the latest news and rumors. Go to our webpage, frowrestling.com, see what we're going to be talking about on the next show. Call in with your questions and comments to the Fro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160. And if you want to become a member of the Fro Wrestling Podcast family, go to patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast. We'd love to have you be a part of the family. Special thanks as always out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects that we use in every show. Today's podcast sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the page. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all of your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. Be sure to shoot over to our website at frolifeplanning.com if you are in search of advice and direction with regards to college, university, or alternate career path. Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. And if you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to the Sports Junkies 101, THA, sportsjunkies101.com, and check out our latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. Until next time, take care, everybody, and have a great day.